Hi, it's Gary Corpenning. I wanted to continue our talks about Romans 12, and we've been working our way slowly through it. Um, and I want to just continue that. Today we've worked our way up to verse 17, but we'll get to that in a minute. I want to back up a little bit and just get a little bit more context for it. Um, Here's the fact: our lives are full of people, all sorts of people. Our immediate family, our extended family, our friends, our neighbors, our coworkers, strangers in the line at the grocery store or some other store, store clerks, mechanics, plumbers, mail carriers, other drivers on the road, strangers that walk past us in the street. Well, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. We have people around us of all sorts, even in this time of social and physical isolation, we still are interacting with people of all sorts all the time. And and so I want to ask this question coming out of the passage we're talking about here in Romans 12:17. And this is the question in all your interactions with all these many other people, how do you decide about how you will treat the people, all these different people, each of these different people? How do you decide how you'll react with them, interact with them, relate to them, how you will treat them? How do you decide? And I want to suggest that if we're honest, and I think even under most circumstances, this is the answer that is going to come up. The most common answer to that question: how do you decide how to treat all that myriad of different people in your life that you run into in the course of life? How do you decide how to treat them? Basically, we, in one way or another, we tend to say, how I treat other people depends on how they treat me. And I think that is kind of our default mode. That's where we generally go. I will treat other people the way they treat me. Which I've got to say, really is the world's way of doing it. We bless those who bless us, and we curse those who curse us. Our goal in our interactions with others is to give them what we think they deserve. Um, how do you know what they deserve? Well, it sort of is based on how we feel about them. In other words, we become the measure of what they deserve. We become their judge. And as I say, I think that's the world's way. And in the world's way, revenge is a big part of that. That's what giving people what they deserve is all about. If they treat me bad, I get them back. Now, Christ's people, as you can imagine, I'm going to say, Christ's people are called to a different way of going about it. Remember what Paul says in Romans 12, in verse 2 in this Romans 12. Do not conform yourself to the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you recognize the will of God, what is good, pleasing to him, and perfect. As God transforms our minds and our hearts, we begin to see things differently. We begin to approach life differently. We approach the world differently. We live according to what He wants. We love what He wants. We live according to the way He goes about His existence, His way of relating. So Paul in Romans 12:17 gives us the challenge to follow God's pattern, God's way of relating to people. This is that verse again, verse 17 in Romans 12. Do not repay evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everybody. So Paul's calling us to God's way of relating, because that is what is God's way of relating. How does he relate to you? You want to know how God relates? How does he relate to you? Does he give you what you deserve? God help us if he does, right? I mean, that's how I feel about it. If he gives me what I deserve, I'm in big trouble. God's way of relating to us is grace. So he blesses when we deserve punishment. When we curse, he blesses. He does that without reference to our deserving. He blesses without reference to what we deserve. God does not say, how I treat them will depend on how they treat me. That's God's way. That's the transformed life way. God has a goal in his relationships with us. His goal is to work his goodness into our lives. That's what Jesus says. John 10:10 tells us. Jesus says, I have come that they might have life and have it in an overflowing abundance. I have come to bless. Um, Now, Paul here calls us to demonstrate to the world what God is like by the way we relate to people. Our way of relating to people should show the world what God is like. If Jesus followers seek revenge, if Jesus followers strike out, if Jesus' followers return evil for evil, then we show the world that God is angry, vengeful, harsh, eager to punish. We show them a graceless God. We show them that God's favor is something that you earn, something that you have to deserve. If we seek revenge, we show them by our lives that God so hated the world that he sent Jesus to punish it. But of course, we know that's not the right verse. I've said that wrong, right? And we're meant to live as if John 3:16 means what it says. God so loved the world that he sent his son to save it. And that's the promise. That's the pattern of God, and we're meant to live that out in the way we relate to people. And that's what Romans 12:17 is calling us to live that out so that people can see it, live that transformed life out so people can see it. Our goal in all our relations with people should be to bring God's goodness into their lives, both to those who are good to us and to those who are nasty to us. And this is just the time for doing that. It's hard, but God will enable us as he transforms us. Let's show the world God, God's love, God's grace. Let's pray. Lord, help us to be that people for you in this time, to show the love and mercy of your grace in all the ways that we relate to others. We ask it in Jesus' name. Amen. I'll talk to you again in a couple of days.